Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope you had a great weekend. It's getting warm here in Nairobi, particularly in the day. If you didn't get a chance to have a look at the interview I did with Charlie Robertson, who's the chief economist of Renaissance Capital, please take a listen. We kind of swept around the whole world, from the tariff war to the contagion that China's feeding into EM, to Argentina, Turkey, North Africa. We dropped down to Sub-Saharan Africa. We took a look at Kenya as well. A lot of debate came out of some comments Charlie made about Ethiopia. So do have a listen. Home Thoughts, World Rhino Day. And that reminded me of my visit with Layla to the Meru National Park, and it was full of rhino, and they're incredible, noble creatures taking us back millions of years. Went back to read some Carl Sagan again. We succeeded in taking that picture you're seeing now, and if you look at it, you see a dot. That's here, that's home, that's us on it, everyone you ever heard of. Every human being who ever lived out their lives, the pale blue dot. More than 5 years after his last PGA Tour victory, Tiger Woods is a winner again, capping off one of the most remarkable comebacks in golf history. Congratulations to our boss on winning the Tour Championship today, making it his 80th PGA Tour victory and a comeback for the ages. And this is a moonshot taken yesterday at 7:33 p.m. in the evening without a flash. Political reflections so far in 2018, at least 1,728 people have drowned while trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea. It's such a debacle, isn't it? It's just incredible. Javier Blas, sunrise over the Straits of Malacca. And they're pretty central to the geopolitics of the world we find ourselves in today. Gunmen kill 11 Revolutionary Guards in attack on Iran military parade. State television blamed Takfiri elements, a reference to Sunni Muslim militants, for the attack. Avaz is the center of Khuzestan province, where there have been sporadic protests by the Arab minority in mainly Shiite Iran. Foreign Minister Javed Zarif blamed the bloodshed on regional terror sponsors, language that usually refers to Iran's enemies, Saudi Arabia and Israel, and their US masters, and vowed that Tehran would respond decisively. A video on state television's website showed confused soldiers at the scene of the attack. Standing in front of the stand, one asked, "Where did they come from?" Another responded, "From behind us." My conclusions are Pompeo and his team of MBS and MBZ are bearing their fangs. The actions of the Israeli pilots, which led to the loss of life of 15 Russian servicemen, either lacked professionalism or were an act of criminal negligence. This is the Russian Ministry of Defense in a 15-minute video exposition, basically laid the blame squarely on the Israelis. The Israeli jet saw the Il-20, used it as a shield against anti-aircraft missiles. The actions of the Israeli pilots, which led to the loss of life of 15 Russian servicemen, lacked professionalism or was an act of criminal negligence. This is an extremely ungrateful response to all that has been done by the Russian Federation for Israel. Russia announced when they complete their military live-fire exercises in waters off Syria, they are closing the airspace over Syrian territorial waters along the entire coastline. Putin needs to shut out Netanyahu over Syrian airspace or shut up. It's one or the other now. Brexit, this is an article in the Times. Theresa May's Chequers deal goes pop. The sterling had become ever so bullish last week and then took a big knock on Friday. It was the look on Donald Tusk's face that told Theresa May she was in trouble. Macron, irritated that Britain was refusing to devise a new version of the backstop to prevent a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic in time for October's EU summit, demanded that May be put on the spot. The UK must make choices, he said. We have to go faster. A minister said, we had expected something between warm and lukewarm, and what we got was stone cold. Eurosceptic MPs said Chequers was dead as a dodo and May would have no chance of getting the Commons to vote for her plan. Ministers called each other to discuss whether they should urge her to pivot to a looser free trade deal with Brussels. Another aide spoke to a Tory strategist outside government and said, what are you doing in November? Because I think we're going to need an election. The idea is that she pivots, strikes a looser deal with Brussels, and if she can't get that deal through the Commons, she calls an election and runs as a Eurosceptic. You say to the public, I told you last time that I needed your help to deliver Brexit. You didn't believe me, but now it really is critical. If you get a decent majority, the Eurosceptics can outvote the Remainers in the Commons. The fringe benefit from May is that a snap election would stop a coup to oust her. The drawback, and this is a big drawback of this approach, is that when May last asked for support to bolster her Brexit negotiating hand at the 2017 general election, the public removed her majority instead. The Prime Minister's got 10 days to come up with a new plan and reset Brexit and her leadership, or men in grey suits will be dispatched to tell her to go. One Brexiteer said it's now shit or bust. So quite a volatile, the language that came out of Bernier and all his crowd was actually quite emollient and soothing, and then completely reversed. Steve Bannon said the US President Donald Trump is willing to make the ongoing trade war unbearably painful for Beijing. Tariff wars, who blinks first? And I was talking about rebel without a cause and the Chicky run and calling Trump a Chicky run specialist. And I've previously said that his aggressive foreign economic policy is the signature success of this administration. It is highly effective. Trump can keep it up. It's working a treat. However, Charlie made me think with this when he said my best case is that as we get closer to US midterm elections, we'll see Trump declare a victory over China, tariffs will come off, and EM will rally for a few good months, he said. China's sea control is a done deal short of war with the US. This is something I've been saying for a while, as the United States Navy reconnaissance plane banked low near Mischief Reef in the South China Sea early this month. A Chinese warning crackled on the radio. US military aircraft came to challenge, delivered in English in a harsh staccato. Click on the link to actually hear it in real time. Well, not in real time. You have violated our China's sovereignty and infringed on our security and our rights. You need to leave immediately and keep far out. Abroad, the P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft flying in what is widely considered to be international airspace. Lieutenant Diana Coughlin scanned a live camera feed showing the dramatic evolution of Mischief Reef. 5 years ago, this was mostly an arc of underwater atoll populated by tropical fish and turtles. Now Mischief Reef, which is off the Philippine coast but controlled by China, has been filled out and turned into a Chinese military base. I mean, this is insane. Look at all that crazy construction. In short, China is now capable of controlling the South China Sea in all scenarios short of war with the United States. The United States has long fashioned itself as a keeper of peace in the Western Pacific, but it's a risky proposition to provoke conflict over a scattering of rocks in the South China Sea, analysts say. Seeing US commitment to its ally Beijing might not have been as confident as it was with its island-building program. The US failure to support its ally in the Scarborough standoff also demonstrated to people like Duterte that he had no other option than to kowtow to China. I wrote about this in August last year, China Rising. I said, apart from a few half-hearted and timid follow-ups, China has established control over the South China Sea. It has created artificial islands and then militarized those artificial islands across the South China Sea. It is a mind-boggling geopolitical advance, any which way you care to cut it. In this photograph, Kim Jong-un and his wife Ri Sol-ju are seen with the South Korean President Moon River and his wife Kim Yoon-suk on Mount Pictou, where Kim attempted to make a finger heart sign, which apparently is a big thing on Instagram. And I take you back to something I wrote earlier this year in February when I was referring to the visit to Pyeongchang. And I said that visit marked a significant and iconic moment for the Mount Pictou bloodline. Well, the photograph is evidence of that. Russian-Turkish signatures on the Idlib agreement in Syria. Without Syrians, neither government nor opposition sums it up. Close-up code on a computer screen for the Apache Struts framework, which was exploited by computer hackers using a remote code execution exploit. That's from a friend of mine, Mel. How to Russia-proof an election. A nondescript office in Riga's communist-era Institute of Mathematics and Computer Science may be Latvia's last line of defense against threats to next month's general election. This is all about cyber warfare. Our adversary is reactive and opportunistic. Its goal isn't so much tampering with the result of elections as delegitimizing the process, raising questions and doubts, much like we saw with the US presidential elections. Highly effective. There'd be two on that front, and I wrote a piece about this. We have a DV8 tomahawk. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 117.26, dollar index 94.25, Japanese yen 112.50, Swiss franc 0.9598, the pound 130.63. That's come off sharply. Aussie 0.726. 0.7254, India rupee 72.455, at risk because of this crude oil rally. South Korean won 11.1982, Brazilian real 405.12, Egyptian pound 17.9430, and the rand, which really rebounded sharply, is now at 14.3934. Dollar index, I'm still in two minds. Charlie made me think about this. We're currently at 94.25, but Trump is an escalator. Dollar yen is at poise for a substantial advance launched by a 14-month symmetrical triangle, asked Peter Brent, 112.50 last. Euro dollar 117.25. I can't get carried away about the euro at the moment. Gold, let's take a look at where that is, 11.95.11. For all the noise, we've been in this trading range. And crude oil has broken out, $71.94. Let's move on to Africa. The US is to set up a $60 billion agency to counter China in the developing world. That's the exact same amount that China committed to at FOCAC. The US is preparing to create an agency that can invest up to $60 billion in the developing world in an effort to counter what some in Washington describe as China's use of debt to wage economic warfare. Ray Washburn, President and Chief Executive of OPIC, told the FT that China, by using what he called loan-to-own programs, was creating countries that have the shackles of debt around them. That amounted to economic warfare, he said. The Chinese have an edge with the African political elites, but not so much with the people. African elites are doing business with them because there's not a lot of transparency, but at the popular level, the Chinese cannot muster the soft power of the West. And this is one of the points I made in an interview on Al Jazeera's Inside Story about whether Africa is getting into a debt trap with China. Take a listen. Africa's high birth rate is keeping the continent poor, as The Economist. They're citing Magufuli, the president of Tanzania. He does not see the point of birth control. On September 9th this year, he told a rally that birth control was a sign of parental laziness. Tanzania must not follow Europe, he went on, where one side effect of widespread contraception is a shrinking labour force. We're talking about the demographics and how we're seeing a massive demographic surge on the continent. The question is, will it be a dividend or a time bomb? With 92% of the votes counted, Mr. Solly has 58.3% of the vote, an unassailable lead over the incumbent Abdullah Yameen. This is in the Maldives. The Maldives, of course, has been the most extraordinary island of late under President Abdullah Yameen. He consolidated power since winning the 2013 presidential election by a narrow margin of 6,000 votes. Very much aligned with China, heavy borrowing. The Sunday election is crucial for both Yameen and India, exactly. And the Indian establishment, must be feeling that China is surrounding them, whether it's in the Doklam Plateau, Gwadar, Hambantota port, and then this intrusion into the Maldives, which seems to have been repelled. From kerosene to toothpaste, toilet paper, toothbrushes, sweets, chocolates, books, mattresses, and even internet access, governments are imposing taxes, measures that are hurting the poor further. In June, as finance ministers presented their annual budgets, East Africa's three top economies announced plans to borrow more than $12 billion to finance their budget deficits, even as their public debts rose amid concerns over sustainability. Rather worrying. Zimbabwe's Finance Minister Mutuli Cube would like to employ a Big Bang economic reform program to the battered economy. My preference is a fiscal shock, but there is a what you call a political collar, or the politics of policymaking, which then slows you down. My preference would be more for a Big Bang approach, because every day counts in terms of cost. We are looking at many options, said the central bank governor. 1 year from now, our wish and our hope and our prayer is that we would have cleared our arrears. Going to the IMF cannot happen until the arrears are cleared. However, in the meantime, Mangunja would like to engage in a 6-month IMF staff monitoring program through June 2019 as part of the nation's re-engagement with the global economy. Tanzanian death toll has risen to 209 as a survivor was found in the capsized ferry. South African all shares down 3.93% this year. Dollar versus rand, ZAR shorts have been squeezed bigly, but I think it's running out of steam here. Egyptian pound 17.9430. Nigerian all share is down 14.91% this year. In Ghana, you can buy muonas. Have a look at this from S. Martin. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 7.52% this year. Congo has confirmed an Ebola case at the Ugandan border. The new infection is almost 200 kilometers away from the nearest other known case in Congo's current Ebola outbreak, which is believed to have killed 97 people since July and infected another 46 in North Kivu and Ituri provinces. And I wrote about Ebola in 2014 when I said it's all about its escape velocity. Viruses exhibit non-linear and exponential characteristics. Provisional liquidators have granted exclusivity to actives for Abrage's Africa funds, citing emerging market investors' level on the ground, diligence undertaken, flexibility in their approach, and immediate working capital support. Coming to Kenya, Kenya's credit rating has been kept on hold by S&P with a stable outlook. They're talking of a better 2018 performance, balanced against concerns whether public spending can be calmed and revenue improved. The yields on both the 10 and 30-year Euro bonds declined by 0.2 and 0.1 to 8% and 9%. I like these longer dated Euro bonds simply because I think the near-term debt sustainability issues will be ironed out over a longer period. Last week, the NSE crashed. The NSE all-share crashed 8%. The NASI crashed. That's the all-share crashed 8%. The NSE 20 5.4%. The NSE 25 8.4%. It's been a bloodbath. The average interbank rate declined to 3.6% from 4.2% the previous week. Average volumes declined by 22.2% to 14.3 billion shillings, which tells me that interbank market has seized up. The NSE is currently trading at a PE ratio of 11.7, dividend yield of 4.9%. The listed banks recorded a 19% average increase in core earnings per share compared to a decline of 14.4% in the first half of 2017. That's from Saharan. The Nairobi all shares down 15.02%. My piece over the weekend is Bears roam the NSE and the number of zombies grows. The markets are never wrong, President Kagame said in an interview in Washington in 2014 at the US-Africa Summit. And this statement is in fact a timeless one. There have been occasions, too many to mention, where folks will rail against the market, and the point is this: always take the side of the market against the demagogue, always. The term bear market is named for the manner in which a bear tends to attack. A bear will usually swipe its paws in a downward motion upon its prey, and for this reason markets laden with falling stock prices are called bear markets. A bear market is a condition in which securities prices fall and widespread pessimism causes the stock market's downward spiral to be self-sustaining. Although figures vary, a downturn of 20% or more from a peak is the widely accepted definition of a bear market. The Nairobi Securities Exchange has three indices: the Nairobi All Share, which is based on market capitalization, therefore the bigger the stock, the heavier its weighting, the NSE 20 and NSE 25, which are equal weighting indices, where the 20 have an equal weighting and the 25 have an equal weighting. The NSE 20 is down 23.697% in 2018. It's at a 19-month low and entered a bear market at the end of August. The Nairobi All Shares down 15.02% in 2018 at a 16-month low and entered a bear market on September the 19th. Last week, a whole series of share prices hit all-time lows. This list is not exhaustive, includes the Venerable Nation Media Group down 34.913%. On a total return basis, Kenya Power down 48.9%, Deacons down 84.5%, Uchumi down 76.08%, Mumias down 50%. The question you need to ask yourself is which of these are zombies? Economists have worried about zombie companies for decades. Timothy Taylor, editor of the Journal of Economic Perspectives, has followed a trail of references back to 1989. Noting sightings of these zombies in Japan from the 1990s, more recently in China. The fundamental concern is that there are companies which should be dead, yet continue to lumber on, ruining things for everyone. The big cap stocks have also rolled over. Safaricom entered a bear market Friday, having fallen 20% over the past 4 weeks. The banks are getting slammed too. KCB has slumped into a bear market and is down 20% over the last 4 weeks. The stock market is largely seen as a leading indicator. If this were the price performance in New York, which by the way closed at all-time highs last week, there would be a revolution and immediate remedial action. One of my first bosses was the aptly named Mark Dearlove, who said to me, "You only get smelly fingers picking bottoms, Ali Khan." The market is further to fall. Safaricom, closing price 24, market capitalization back below $1 trillion, Earnings per share 1.38, PE 17.39. NSE 20 is down 23.69%. Latest data from the CBK indicates that private sector credit growth came in at 4.3% in June 2018, higher than 3.9% in May 2018. According to Citons, gross non-performing loans ratios risen to a weighted average of 10% from 7.7% in the first half of 2017. 20 of the best things to do in Kenya is a CNN travel article, rather good. One of its first things is Summit Mount Kenya, rising to just over 17,000 feet, continent's second highest peak. But the summit trails are far less crowded than its snowy counterpart Kilimanjaro across the border in Tanzania. This is a photograph of sunrise tinting the clouds of Mount Kenya. And then one of my favorite places is the number 3 choice, Soak Up Sea, Sun and Sand at Diani, 20 best things to do in Kenya. It's a lovely photograph of Diani Beach as well. Once again, thank you for stopping by.